Stalwart. Today I'm going to be talking about Meniere's disease. For those of you suffering from Meniere's disease or who've had it diagnosed, knows that there's a lot of problems with your balance, your coordination, feeling of extreme vertigo at random times, which is very scary and stressful. The feeling of fullness within your ear, that feeling of a wet ear. You may have symptoms like headaches, brain fog, just sort of that uneasy feeling like you're not very grounded. And chances are you've tried everything for this if you're watching this video. And you may have tried things like injections, you may have taken different drugs, you may have tried any other techniques, whether it's an exercise or a stretch or some sort of alternative therapy. And the medical community calls Meniere's disease an idiopathic disease, meaning that they don't really know what the cause of it is. But there's ample research now that's showing more and more of Meniere's disease cases are caused by a trauma to the upper part of the neck or damage to the or trauma to the upper to the head as well. And most of that can come from a motor vehicle accident, but it doesn't always have to be. It can be a fight, a hit to the head, a blow to the head, a biking accident. I've had individuals who've had crazy things, whether it's a concussion, a fall that started it. And a lot of times those symptoms of Meniere's disease don't kick in until 10 to 15 years later. Sometimes it's can be sooner than that. You may experience things like nausea, vomiting, ringing in your ears, all that stuff. So all the symptoms that are involved, and the stress of not knowing when the next attack is going to come leaves people very anxious, and rightfully so. And unfortunately, a lot of people end up on some sort of antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication that really is just treating some of the symptoms and not getting to the cause. So I want to talk about what happens when you have an upper neck trauma, and if left uncorrected, how it just continues to get worse and worse, and the symptoms will get worse. So when you damage the upper part of the neck, and this is a very small model of an atlas bone, which is the top bone in your neck, and the axis bone, which is the second bone in your neck. Those sit directly underneath the base of your skull. The base of your skull, of course, has that hole in it, and that allows the neurology of the brain and brainstem to come right down there. This atlas bone, the hole in the bottom in your atlas bone here is designed to line up perfectly with the hole in the bottom of your skull. Now, just like two rings lining up, obviously if the rings don't line up perfectly, it starts to create compression. And that is what happens when you have trauma to the upper part of the neck and head. There's some very delicate sensors that control things like pain perception, your body's coordination and balance, controls position, okay? So when you have that trauma there, it affects all that stuff. The other thing that's really important to note is that when you do have trauma there, it can disrupt the sympathetic and the parasympathetic balance, okay? That's a part of your central nervous system. So all the input that's coming into your brain and your brain having to send messages back down to your body gets disturbed. How does the ear have an effect on this? Well, it used to be taught or thought anyway that the inner ear, that Meniere's disease was all caused by some, fluid that's built up in the ear, and that's this overproduction of fluid for whatever reason. They call it a wet ear. And that's part of it, but I think we have to take a look at what's controlling that, and why is the body continuing to produce that fluid, but also the muscles that control that surround the eustachian tube and don't allow the body to drain. Why is that happening? Well, in my opinion, it's because the body's nervous system is staying in a hypertonic state, meaning that it's contracted all the time. It would be like your car revving at 8,000 RPMs when you came to a stoplight. And you get into this state of sympathetic overload. So you're anxious, you're tight, your digestive system's off. And what happens is it produces an abundance of fluid. The sebaceous glands start to secrete all this extra fluid, and that creates that sense of fullness within the ear. Why is that not draining? Well, what is controlling the tone of the muscle around the inner ear? That's your nervous system. Comes back to damage. If there's compression on the nerves that are controlling the body's ability to relax, it is not going to relax. So the procedure that I use is non-invasive. It's a very gentle procedure that very specifically and delicately unlocks the position of that top bone and lines up the hole in the bottom of the skull with the top bone in your neck. Now, that's a very crude way of putting it, but we need to essentially restructure, reorganize, and allow the body to regain access to its ability to heal. And until that happens, we're really just chasing symptoms. So if you have questions about Meniere's disease or balance and coordination, maybe you're dealing with headaches or other symptoms associated with Meniere's disease, please give me a call. I can be reached at 705-984-9077. Look up research on upper cervical work and its association with Meniere's disease, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. You'd be surprised how much is now involved with trauma to the upper part of the neck. So if you thought that old injury you had to your head and neck was done and had nothing to do with your health today, you need to think again and reassess that. So I hope this helps you have a little better understanding of Meniere's disease and really Meniere's syndrome, because it's just a host of different symptoms and syndromes put together. So please don't hesitate to call me or send me a message. I hope this helps, and all the best in life.